Hey guys, so I always get a ton of questions about my split tongue, and I figured it was finally time to just make a video and answer all of them at once. Let's just get into it. First things first, I do want to talk a little bit about what a split tongue is. So this is my split tongue. And as you can see, it is cut down the middle. Your tongue is actually not made of one muscle, it's made of multiple muscles, and when you split a tongue, you're only cutting through the connective tissue that is holding your tongue halves together. So you're not cutting through any muscle, you're not limiting any range of motion, you're not damaging any nerve endings or anything like that. When done correctly, it's just cutting connective tissue down the middle of your tongue. The next question that I always get, like always, is why the hell did I do this? This answer is going to disappoint a ton of people, but there's no special reason why I got my split tongue. Like, it's not religious or spiritual or like cultish or anything like that. When I was little, when I was 6 years old, I was watching this TV show called Ripley's Believe It or Not, and they had this guy featured there, and he called himself the Lizard Man, and he got a bunch of modifications to make himself look more like a lizard. Like, he had tattoos, and I believe he had like the kind of like lizard like eye slits, and he also had a split tongue, and I saw that tongue and I thought it was the coolest fucking thing I had ever seen. At the very old, experienced, wise age of 6 years old, and that is when I promised myself that one day I would get it. As I got older, my obsession and love and appreciation for body mods, especially split tongues, just grew, and I wanted it ever since I saw it that first time. As soon as I was old enough to get it and the stars aligned where I was able to get it from a reputable mod artist, I did it. I have had this for 10 years now, over 10 years now, and I don't regret it a single bit. It is my favorite body mod, and I know that, you know, I have loved it my whole life, and I will continue to love it my whole life. Alrighty, next question that I get a lot is, what is the process for getting a split tongue? Like, how does the procedure actually work? So for me, and bear in mind this happened like a decade ago, so I don't know if the process has changed or evolved since then, but for me, they had me gargle with antibacterial mouthwash, and then they had me stick my tongue out, and they dried it with a paper towel, held it down with some clamps, like one clamp on either side so it stayed out, and then the mod artist drew a line down the center of my tongue where they wanted to cut it, and then they took a scalpel and they just cut it. And then after that, they stitched up the sides, so like along there, so that the tongue wouldn't close back up. And it was a very simple, straightforward procedure. It took, God, it's been so long. I would say it probably took about like 45 minutes to an hour. A lot of the time was prep, like drying my tongue, making sure the line was straight. And then a lot of the time, like the most amount of time, was the stitches, but the actual like cutting of the tongue was like super quick. I would be surprised if it even took like a full minute. And then after they sent me home, after 1 week, I cut my stitches out and I was good to go. The next group of questions I tend to get about my tongue split have to do with ability and control. So questions like, does food taste any differently to me? Have I lost any sensation in my tongue? Do I speak with a lisp? Is there anything that I can't do? Like, do I speak differently? You know, just like things like that. And when it comes to taste, there is nothing that is different for me. The only thing that I would say is that I feel like I grew taste buds like in between my split, and that wasn't there before. Like, I couldn't taste anything there before, like immediately after I got my stitches out, and then over time that kind of developed. And then when it comes to control, there's really nothing that I can't do that I could do before I got my tongue split, save for two things. One of them is roll my R's. It's a lot harder for me to roll my R's because I feel like the vibration that is created by pushing air through, like, your tongue and the roof of your mouth is what makes that sound. And when you push air through a split tongue, like the air just goes through kind of like the slit in the middle. So for me, rolling my R's sounds like, and then it just like stops. And then the second thing is I can't click my tongue. Although I also couldn't really do that all that well when I had my standard tongue piercing in. So that might just have to do with like the vacuum seal that is needed to create that sound. And again, like the air will just go through the slit and it can't make that like clicking sound. So those are the two things that I can't do, but everything else like eating and chewing and swallowing and all of that stuff, like I can do completely normally. Personally, I don't really think that I talk with all that much of a lisp. Some people can hear it a little bit, but honestly, I feel like I don't really talk any differently. Most people honestly like don't know that I have a split tongue unless I tell them, because even as I'm talking to you now, it's just like really hard to recognize. The other question that I get about control is whether or not I can move both sides independently, and yes, I can. Like I said, your tongue is not one muscle, it is multiple muscles, and so just like any set of muscles, they can move independently. It definitely took a lot of practice to be able to do that. Actually, when I first got my tongue split, I had no control whatsoever over the movement of my tongue, and if I were to lay on my back, my tongue, I could feel it in my mouth, just like the split would start to like slowly, it would like come apart in my mouth because I didn't know how to, like I didn't have the muscle control to like hold it together in my mouth. And now obviously I have no problem controlling it, but it did take a lot of practice in front of the mirror, and it took some time for me to get down the movement. It definitely was weird at first eating. A lot of food would fall through the split in my tongue, but now I honestly don't even, it's like second nature to me. Nothing feels different, and sometimes even I honestly forget that I have a split tongue. A question that I get less frequently, but still pretty often, is how I found an artist who was willing to split my tongue. Because the procedure is still a relatively rare one. It's definitely not as rare as it used to be like 10 years ago back when I got it done, but I know that people who want it are still having trouble finding reputable mod artists to do it for them. And unfortunately, I can tell you what my experience was, but I don't know how applicable that this will be for anybody who is looking for help to find a way to get their tongue split in the present day. But for me, I got really into body modification. I followed a bunch of body mod blogs. I followed a whole bunch of different like piercers and tattoo artists on social media. I got more and more into just kind of like the fringe group of like body mod, you know, people who got like ear pointings or like silicone implants, or you know, like eyeball tattoos, just like the weirder stuff. It's almost like getting yourself into like a fandom almost, where like just the more that you are in it, the more that you can understand like inside jokes or references or things that people are like talking about. Is basically, that's what I did, but with the body mod community. And so I was following news of who was doing what, and I finally found a reputable artist who was willing to do it for me, who had a ton of experience. They were trained under a family of surgeons. That's actually how they started out. And then they moved from that medical field to extreme body mods. And so that's how I knew that I would be going to somebody who was like safe and reputable. I don't know, like that's the most I can say about it. Other than that, you're gonna have to do your own research, figure it out, talk to people. Honestly, talking to people in the community is probably the best advice that I can give. And then the last question that I get pretty often is, can it be reversed? And I would say that a tongue split is about as permanent a mod as a tattoo. You are able to reverse it, but it is a process that is going to be about as invasive as getting it in the first place. So from what I understand, and to be honest, I don't understand much because I've never actually looked into getting a tongue split removed. I have never had that feeling that I ever needed to know how, but from what I understand, they need to reopen the wound, and I believe they do this by like scraping or cauterizing or something, the healed layer of skin along the sides, and then stitching your tongue back together and then letting it heal back together. And similarly to a tattoo, like you technically can get it removed with like laser tattoo removal. It's a process and it's painful and it sucks. So I would say that it's about as permanent as a tattoo. I also get questions about kissing and oral sex and all that stuff. But I am not going to answer those questions here. I don't want to give that shit away for free because that is a lot of how I market my OnlyFans. And so if you want to learn more about kissing or oral sex or see my split tongue in action, you will have to subscribe to see those videos. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you got to the end of this video, I know it's a little bit of a long one with a lot of talking, and I will see you guys later.